And welcome back, everyone, to Embrace the Spoilers. I'm Garrett Weinzierl. I'm sitting here with Jocelyn Moffett, and we're going to continue spoiling World of Warcraft Legion. If you missed last week, we covered Stormheim, so if you want to hear that, you should go listen to it. And today we'll be covering Azuna. And for those of you who want to keep following along, next week we'll do High Mountain, followed by Val'sharah, and we'll be wrapping things up with the max level zone Suramar on our fifth and semi-final episode of this. Who knows when it'll be coming back. I'm sure there will be more lore to spoil in future patches. But anyways, Jocelyn, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm actually hoping that they release all of the questing content for Suramar before it gets to the point where we actually have to cover it.
Yes, that is. So how's your week been going? Because this is the thing with me. I hit max on my main, my Blood Elf Paladin. This is the Paladin that I raided with super hardcore in Lich King. This is the Paladin I killed Arthas with. Very near and dear to my heart. Jocelyn, I hit 110 and realized I don't really like playing Paladin anymore.
Oh, no.
So I got to Suramar and was like, I'm going to go try out my Death Knight because I'm going to be tanking for my buddies, you, Kyle, Kristen, Dills, later today, actually, if you're watching this live. By the way, we're streaming this live now. We figured why not? We'll give it a shot. So next week, if you want to tune in live, if you're catching this on the download, head on over to twitch.tv/AMoveTV. We do it at noon Eastern time on Mondays, so you can come join us for that. But anyway, we're gonna be starting our 5-man stream where we run a dungeon every Monday later today. So I was like, well, let me dust off the Death Knight. I'll be tanking on him anyway. And turns out, man, I really prefer the Death Knight post Legion patch to the Paladin. So
well, there were so many huge class changes. I'm not surprised that something you've played for so long is not as enjoyable to you now, because I know I had the same feeling with my hunter, and I've gotten used to my new rotation, and it's okay, and I will always main her just because the nostalgia, whatever. But I'm having way more fun on other characters. I'm actually having more fun on my paladin than anything else. So
yeah, well, to each their own. I think it's that everyone else changed a decent amount, and I think for the better. And Retribution Paladin specifically has basically changed not at all. It's almost indistinguishable since Cataclysm Ret Pally to me, and I'm kind of just bored at this point. I've never found it a particularly interesting rotation. So for whatever reason, I don't know. I'm finally bored with it. So basically, my point was I made it to Suramar and then was like, I'm bored. I'm gonna go level someone else. So I haven't seen much of Suramar. So it's you're telling me it is not actually finished. There's not all of the questing content there yet.
No, all of the questing content is also gated. So you have to have like a certain amount of rep with the faction before more quests will open up. And the only way to get enough rep is to do world quests over and over and over and over. So basically, if you clear all of your Suramar world quests, then it takes probably like a week and a half to open up the next level, and then probably another like week on top of that to open the next level. Like it just,
oh wow.
Yeah, it takes a really, really, really long time because like you earn rep with them half as fast as you earn anyone else. So if you get like 150 rep for a world quest with any other faction, you get 75 rep with them. It's painfully slow.
All right, cool. Good to know that the crippling grind is still alive and well in World of Warcraft. I
was going to say, now that I've hit 110 and I'm officially doing all my max level stuff, and I'm grinding everything, I'm now hitting things in Legion I don't like. So the leveling was perfection. It was amazing. It was such a great experience. And then I hit 110 and I just went, what?
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? And yeah, I went to do archaeology and then found out that was gated. You can only get one quest every 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So it takes 26 weeks to do archaeology. I'm just like, what?
I have avoided archaeology like the plague because it seems excruciatingly boring and has seemed really punishing since the beginning. So that just is doubling down on my personal opinion of that profession. But I know some people.
I always enjoyed it. You got some cool toys. There were some cool mounts and pets and stuff. And so I've always really enjoyed archaeology. And then to find out that I can only do it, so right now it's Stormheim. 2 weeks from now, it'll be another zone. And so it's also gated by zone. So you get one zone every 2 weeks. So if you miss the Stormheim 2 weeks, you have to wait like 6 weeks before Stormheim will open up again.
That's kind of gross.
Yeah, it's ridiculously
gross.
bad.
It's almost like they want you to not just binge play World of Warcraft.
And that's fine. But then, like on top of that, I'm just like, I'm sitting here as someone who stayed subbed all the way through Warlords. I'm just like, can't I have some sort of something in my bag or something like a Hearthstone that I can just press to be like loyalty bonus, like remove time gating.
No, Jocelyn, you cannot.
Like, I'm going to be subbed to WoW regardless. So, proof is I stayed subbed all through Draenor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, fantastic, man.
Anyways, I hope that they've opened up Suramar by then. I hope that we've both ground enough rep and stuff. I should be through it by the time we're doing the episode, but I am still enjoying it. It's a really cool zone. But we're not talking about that today. Today we're talking about Azuna.
No, we are. That is exactly what we're going to be discussing. So Azuna was. Did you start in Azuna? Because that's where I started.
Yes. So I started my main character there, and now I've started my alt there as well. It is probably my favorite zone outside of Suramar.
Sweet. Yeah, I started there as well. At this point, many of you are aware of my my just overall disgust with orc design philosophies. So when Draenor was over and I no longer had to hang out in huts made out of Kodo turds, I was looking at where I could start. And I'm like, oh, Azuna. Oh, let's see. Blah, 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 a bunch of highborn elves, magic. Okay, we're going here. This sounds like the opposite of orcs.
There's literally like no orcs.
No, there's not
at all.
And I couldn't be happier because I'm done for quite a while. I don't even like going back to Orgrimmar right now.
I know.
Just like, okay, maybe I'll just hang out in Silvermoon, even though I'm the only person there.
But there's portals there now, so it's easy to get to.
Can I just say I love how easy it is to get around in Legion? The fact
you can get anywhere. There's even you can go to Wormrest Temple. There's a portal. Like,
it's fantastic.
The Dalaran Crater, if you want to do that.
I've got a Dalaran Hearthstone, which just takes me to Dalaran, and then there's a portal to anywhere from Dalaran, and everywhere I go, that from the portal from Dalaran has a portal back to Dalaran. So it's so delightfully convenient. I love it. They've simultaneously fixed what my biggest issue with garrisons was, which was making the world feel small and not alive because I never see any other players. It feels like a living, breathing world, but at the same time, they haven't made me just like spend hours traveling, which I like quite a bit. It's a lot of time just spent in areas with other players, and I really dig that. So. Anyway, let's talk about Azuna. So Azuna is basically, as far as we're concerned for Legion, home of this ancient sect of night elves whose civilization predates the Great Sundering, which, if you're not aware, Jocelyn, what is the Great Sundering?
Okay, so the Great Sundering is what happened at the end of the War of the Ancients 10,000 years ago. So Queen Azshara and her highborn were trying to basically make themselves more powerful by pulling from the Well of Eternity. This opened up, or at least attracted the attention of the Burning Legion. And so then they, through Sargeras' influence and help from demons, opened a portal that was supposed to allow Sargeras to come to Azeroth. Ha, big bad, that's terrible. We don't want that. So through some crazy backdoory kind of like weird storylines, Malfurion, Illidan, Tyrande, and a couple of other, like Ronan was there, spoiler alert, kind of ended up basically exploding the Well of Eternity, which actually is a basically line straight into the core of Azeroth's magical power.
Yep.
And so when that exploded, it caused the one continent that was, I can't remember what it was called now. Anyways, there's one big continent, and then it exploded, and now we have the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor.
Yeah, we will call it...
what was the Well of Eternity is now the Maelstrom.
I was going to say, we'll call it not Pangea.
Yes. So yeah, that was the Great Sundering, was the creation of the continents due to the explosion in the last War of the Ancients. Or, sorry, the War of the Ancients. This is not the new War of the Ancients.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
There was no last War of the Ancients.
There can be only one War of the Ancients.
Yes.
Yeah, so Azuna is important to this because of this particular Night Elf civilization, because it was involved with the Highborn that were corrupted by Sargeras, but they were far enough away that they were not themselves corrupted by Sargeras. But there's a huge tie to Queen Azshara and all of that, which we'll get to in a bit. So anyway, as far as we're concerned, as heroes of either the Horde or Alliance, we go there with Khadgar, get to see him in the good old Raven form, which we haven't seen in a while.
When he was talking about saddle sores, I was just like, oh, Khadgar. First of all, TMI. Second of all, I've never seen this side of you. It's very, like,
Khadgar
funny,
is super,
jokey, like...
super dad jokey in this expansion, which is fine by me because I dig that kind of stuff. But yeah, so we go to Azuna with Khadgar and find out, as we're swooping down over, that Queen Azshara is just letting loose all the Naga. Just all of them. Letting them loose, too.
Was so cool to see that flyover and all of them just swarming in over the ruins. Like, I got goosebumps the first time I went in and did it, because the whole reason that I chose Azuna as my starting zone was because I love the War of the Ancient story. So seeing, like, what happened to her, because, you know, previously we've had kind of like, I guess, like, whispers, rumors of what happened to her. But to actually see, like, her commanding the Naga and them, you know, oh, God, it was so cool.
Yeah, I was really excited about it as well. So, obviously, we're going there for the same reason we're going everywhere, which is to get the Pillar of Creation that is conveniently in one of these 4 zones. Which I still think is really silly. It's like, there are these 4 really important things, and they're in these 4 specific zones. No, 2 did not end up in one zone. It is equally spread out between these 4 zones, and not the 5th one that you can't go into yet because everything will eat you. So we're
there are actually 5 pillars of creation.
Oh, my bad. my bad. Well, I wonder why Khadgar doesn't seem too concerned about that 5th one when we start this whole thing.
That is a good question.
It's almost like game mechanics are dictating his concern. Anyways, so yeah, we're specifically going to Azuna for the Tidestone. I even forget I had it written down, and I'm losing it in this pile of text because there's so much lore to discuss here.
There is so much lore. Even I can't. I was just calling it the Tidestone because it's like the Tidestone of something that starts with a G or something. And I'm so bad at doing this in all books I read and all expansions. Is usually I just go the Tidestone of some name I can't pronounce, and I just totally skim right over it. I'm just like, I can just go Tidestone. I know what they're talking about.
Yep, absolutely. So we go there with Khadgar and we're gonna join the Illidari base camp. The Illidari have gone. They've set up a base camp, and when we get there, it turns out, hey, the Legion's here. Which is funny for me because, again, this is the first zone I started in. I'm like, yeah, Legion, more demons. And actually, this is like, yeah, Legion, this is the only demons I'm going to see in the 4 zones for the most part. You come across almost no demons in this entire expansion. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think, did we mention that last week? Or, it might have been on a different show. But yeah.
We've been talking about WoW on too many shows in too many places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there aren't very many demons. You basically see these demons in a very small island type space in Azuna, which is almost like, it kind of makes sense because it's the closest to the Tomb of Sargeras. So it's kind of like bleeding into the mainland almost, which is kind of a cool concept. So I'm hoping we see, as we get more patches, kind of a ramping up of like more and more demons entering the Broken Isles. Yeah.
I mean, we see a lot of their influence throughout all of it, whether
exactly.
it's Fel-infused Vrykul or what's going to happen in
Nightmare
Bal-Shara.
Corrupted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All that stuff. But anyway, we get there. We're outside of the Farondis ruins, and the Legion's just going nuts. They've kind of taken over. So first order of business is to push them back from Farondis. So, this is after learning all of the shit that's at the fan with Queen Azshara and stuff, but we're gonna have to wait to deal with Azshara. So, we started the Demon Hunter encampment. We go into Farondis, and we find out that there's a blue dragon who came in and killed a butt ton of demons and got herself captured. And this is Stella Gosa, who's one of the Blue Dragonflight. And we save her, and then we also find out that Cordana Felsong, who last expansion was our buddy Warden, but she fell to the influence of Gul'dan when Khadgar saved Garota.
Yes, and so this was so confusing to me because I didn't actually finish the very last quest in the
Legendary questline.
Legendary questline. So you basically, what happens is after Garona is essentially saved, cleansed, whatever, she becomes your follower. Then you get the last quest. Then you essentially empower this ridiculously powerful ring, which is no longer relevant after about 10 minutes of questing. But anyways, you get this.
It's relevant for a little longer than that, unless you get really lucky with upgrades.
That was a little bit salty of me, but still, the point is that you get this super powerful ring, and then Cordana, through basically all of the stuff that they've been doing, that Khadgar had been doing, trying to find Gul'dan and all of the links that he'd been creating, Gul'dan was able to corrupt Cordana, and she tries to steal the ring from you, the adventurer, and Khadgar. So then you have to kind of defeat her. She runs away, and then we find out she's like full-on corrupted Cordana. But if you don't have that piece of information, the last time you saw her was her questioning Khadgar's methods, saying, like, you probably shouldn't torture Garona to try to get information. And then the next time you see her, she's all, like, fell, like, evil. I was like, wait, what? The warden? I was so
Did you
confused.
do, have you started a Demon Hunter? Have you done the Demon Hunter starting experience?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Because you experienced Cordana a lot. I also did not finish my legendary quest line because I just got so burnt out with Draenor. But when I did the Demon Hunter starting experience, I was like, what the hell happened to Cordana? And looked it up. And I was like, oh, okay. That's what happened. Cool. Thank you, Noble87. By the way, guys, if you're not watching Noble87's videos on YouTube and you want to catch up on the lore, it's a good way to do so. But yeah, she looks badass. I really like fell infused Cordana.
Yeah, she does look really cool. Although I, in general, don't like the warden kind of
Armor?
I guess armor. Yeah,
I love the armor. I just think it's dated because they haven't given us an updated warden model since ever. It's the same that it was in vanilla.
Yeah, and well, I mean, for that matter, it's the same that it was in Warcraft, right? So.
Well, yeah, but I mean. I guess, okay, some people have gotten costume changes like Thrall. But, I mean, for the most part, I mean, that's what it's supposed to... That's not my problem. I like the design. It's just that the fidelity of it in-game,
I
it
see
looks
what you mean, yeah.
like noticeably dated compared to everything else in the game.
Yeah.
Kind of like when you're, later on, we'll talk about Val'sharah, when you're questing with Tyrande and she pulls out the old-ass, janky, level 40 Nightsaber mount. And just like everything else around you is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in the history of Warcraft, and Tyranda's running around on this jank ass mount. Really bothers me that they haven't gone the extra mile to spruce up some of the older assets. But I'm a big fan of the Wardens and I like their armor personally. But hey, to each their own. You probably really like the what the Klaxi look like, whereas when in Pandaria, I couldn't stand that entire zone. I hated the entire design aesthetic. It drove me bonkers. But anyways, yeah. So Cordana Felsong is in the Farenar ruins, and she's trying to turn Illidari to the side of the Legion. And it turns out that one of the demon hunters did actually turn and went traitor named Nightglaive. We learn all this out pretty much from Stelagosa. So towards the end of the Farenar stuff, we confront Nightglaive. Cordana is not actually there anymore. She's doing a Star Wars holograph, talking to Nightglaive. We kill Nightglaive, and we find out from Stelagosa that there is a larger Blue Dragonflight presence in Azuna. Yes.
I've got to say, like, I almost squeaked out loud when I saw that, because the whole thing with the Blue Dragonflight is that Malygos, and this is the whole reason that he goes crazy, but Malygos basically goes one-on-one with Deathwing in the War of the Ancients.
Yep.
Deathwing swats him aside like a fly, destroys his whole entire flight right in front of him, as well as all of the eggs and stuff that are anywhere within kind of sight. And he does this with the power of the Dragon Soul. So to see this little pocket of the Blue Dragonflight that is uncorrupted, and you get to see the Blue Dragonflight the way it was meant to be. It's so cool. It's not this fractured, shattered, just crazy, full of humans shouldn't have magic dragons. Like, and I know that they've kind of brought the blue flight back in with Caligos and all the rest of it, but that's not nearly as cool as seeing what I like a lot about this whole expansion actually is basically this stuck in time world of things that were saved from the Sundering. Like it's so cool.
Yeah, it's I'm with you as well because you're right. The Blue Dragonflight were reintroduced in a way with Caligos, but we don't honestly see a lot of it in game. We see Caligos, that's it. The majority of it is covered in novels, and while I like them, I'm a big Christy Golden fan, I really just wish all of this was covered in the game itself. I don't want to have to go outside World of Warcraft to get my lore. It's such a huge game. There's plenty of room for this type of information.
Agreed.
And I think a lot of that has gotten better, especially with this expansion. That was kind of my issue when scenarios were first introduced. I was like, yeah, let's go. The Theramore thing's going to be so sweet. And it was extremely lame. And you still had to go to the book to actually learn what the hell was going on. So
yeah.
But the scenarios in this expansion so far have been phenomenal and just light years beyond where they've been, I think, in the past. But yeah, this is the most Blue Dragonflight we have seen in the game that weren't trying to kill us. We saw a lot of Blue Dragonflight in Lich King, but they were crazy because Malygos was still waging his war against all of the magic users of Azeroth. So that's all said and done. So we find out about her grandfather, Senegos, who, according to Khadgar, is quite possibly the oldest living dragon in all of Azeroth, which is, I find that type of stuff really, really cool.
Well, and I was really glad that when we actually do go and help him, his model actually looks different. He's bigger. He's got all kinds of like super cool like scales and just he looks ancient and powerful, which is exactly what I want out of like the oldest dragon ever. Yeah. I love dragons with beards, which is something that I feel I'm sure they exist somewhere else, but to me, as far as I know, I've only ever seen it in just in Warcraft in general. I love that there are dragons with beards, and that's exactly what Senegos is. But they didn't just like reuse the Malygos model because the Malygos model had, it looked aged and old and ancient. But yeah, Senegos has a unique model. He's super cool, and he is not doing well. He's not doing well. At all. So you've already talked somewhat about why the Blue Dragonflight are in such disrepair, but all of the Dragonflights are not doing well. Deathwing dying was actually bad for them. It took a lot of their power to defeat Deathwing, and it also they're no longer immortal. It made them mortal, Deathwing dying. So the Blue Dragonflight, who were already in dire straits, also now have a major loss of power to contend with. And basically, what Deathwing did to them in the War of the Ancients was essentially steal part of their essence because he tricked all of the Dragonflights into giving some of what they were, putting it into the power of the Dragon Soul, and then he took the Dragon Soul for himself. It was supposed to be a magical artifact that allowed them to channel their power to do good, and then he chose to do evil.
Exactly. We use the same artifact to defeat Deathwing.
Exactly. So then between the defeat of Deathwing and the Dragon Soul being destroyed, then that basically meant that the essence of the Dragonflights was lost. So they put all of their power into defeating him, and then now they're kind of withering away, which is very, very sad.
Yeah.
Because, Deathwing was a really big, crazy, big bad and required all of this ridiculous power and sacrifice. So that in and of itself is a really cool storyline. And then so to see the fallout from Cataclysm a few expansions later, kind of like, and you get to get up close and personal with it. It's so cool.
Yeah, we've been to Pandaria and Draenor since then, so it's cool that this has come now full circle. Because while I think Cataclysm was a low point in World of Warcraft, the story that was told there with the aspects, I loved it. So we find Senegos. He's soaking in a big mana pool because he is just straight up dying. He cannot leave this thing or he's going to die. And we find out from Khadgar that just something is wrong with the magical power, just the magical power in Azuna as a whole. Not sure what's going on with the energy, but it doesn't seem right. And then we find out that withered elves are attacking the Blue Dragonflight. And I feel like every word that leaves my mouth, we have to stop and go into a lore discussion. So let's talk about the Withered Elves. They are Nightborne, which is a kind of an ascended version of a night elf, basically. They're like highborn night elves.
Who have been cut off from the moon, basically.
Yes, exactly. The Suramar is this great night elf civilization, and when the Legion came, they protected themselves in a barrier very similar to where Dalaran was in Vanilla and Burning Crusade, how it was just protected by this barrier while they rebuilt. This is what the Night Elves of Suramar did, and they were cut off from the sun, they're cut off from the moon, and they had to just turn to their well for power. So they're basically the Blood Elf version of Night Elves. They're very mana dependent. Mm-hmm. They have a very strong caste system, and being exiled is not uncommon. You can be exiled from Suramar, which means you're further cut off from your source of mana. Although the one thing I don't understand is if you're outside of Suramar, then don't you have access to the moon again?
That's a really good question. I feel like they've become dependent specifically on, like they've evolved past being able to tap into that source of energy.
Gotcha.
Much like the moon doesn't help the Blood Elves anymore.
Okay. They've been
require
become
the
dependent
Sunwell.
on arcane.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Okay. So I feel like this is a different kind of power than what the Night Elves. They're still very natural. They pull directly from
nature.
The moon. Yeah. Versus like these guys, they specifically need like the Arc Wine, which is, basically raw mana refined into something they can consume.
Yeah. And did we know about any of this with like the Nightborne and everything before Legion? Because I remember when they made Night Elf mages an option, players, like lore fans, were losing their collective minds. They're like, no, this cannot happen. Night Elves blacklist magic use. There's no way you could write this where this makes sense. And I'm sitting here just going, well, they're all connected to Highborn, which it does make sense, but
oh yeah, they can use the arcane, but anyone who was a mage and a night elf was essentially exiled from Night Elf society because they didn't want them to. They knew how powerful they could be, and so didn't want to kind of repeat the mistakes of the past and have a second highborn sort of thing occur, a second Queen Azshara, whatever.
Yeah. Didn't
want to invite the Legion back. It was very much like if you want to play around with magic, then you are no longer welcome in Night Elf society.
Gotcha.
So, but they did invite the highborn back in,
I believe
right before Kata.
I think it was Kata, yeah. I think it was a pre-Kata patch when we got the ability to roll a Night Elf mage. Anyway, so that's the Nightborne. When the Nightborne are exiled and no longer near Suramar, no longer have the ability to harness the power of the Nightwell, they become Nightfallen. They become kind of gaunt, skinny, and they just need to just search for any form of arcane power that they can siphon off to sustain themselves. And if they cannot do that, they regress even further and become basically zombies, known as the Withered. And so the Withered are the type of Nightborne elves that are attacking the Blue Dragonflight for their arcane energy. They're just trying to kill the dragons and suck out their life force.
Yes. So they're kind of like vampire zombies.
Yep, pretty much. Which this is all very similar to what was going on with the Blood Elves at the beginning of Burning Crusade, with how they were explaining how they were basically mana vampires. Mm-hmm. That since it's become less of a thing after the Sunwell raid and everything, but anyways. So we find out all about that. Senegos reveals that there are ghosts of elves that live in Nar'thalas that once kept the Tidestone of Golganath. There it is. I knew I wrote it in here somewhere, which is the pillar that we were trying to get from Azuna. And he tells us to go seek out the ghost of Prince Farondis, who we'll talk about in a second, but not before we deal with the Withered. We meet Runas the Shamed, who is a withered Nightfallen elf. And I love this character, Jocelyn.
He was probably, from the 4 leveling zones, my favorite non-core NPC. Like, he was almost like a side quest. He's in this very, very small part of this. Obviously, the Blue Dragonflight is part of your main quest line, but he is like a little side character. He's only around for 2 or 3 rounds of questing. And he was voiced really well. His character is really cool. He was a great introduction to just the idea of the Withered and the Nightborne and everything else that kind of went along with that whole mana thing. And he absolutely nailed like the addict, like the talks too much, the rubbing the arms, the like slapping himself in the face, and like like, no, you can do this. You don't need mana. It was really, really well done. I enjoyed his questing so much.
Yeah, and he's also voiced by Jim Cummings. We talked about Jim Cummings last week because he was voicing the Vrykul who turns out to be Odin, spelt slightly differently from actual Norse mythology Odin because Blizzard. But yeah, Jim Cummings is just all over frickin' World of Warcraft. And I love his work, so I'm glad to see him here. I fell in absolute love with the character of Runas, and I'm sad about what happened to him later.
Yeah.
But he tells us about the Nightfallen who is leading the Withered, Elyeth, and he's currently siphoning ley energy from Azuna, and that's basically what's causing Senegos and the rest of the Blue Dragonflight to have a bad time. So we go out to where Elyeth is. Sure enough, there's all these mana siphons just sucking the essence from Azuna. We thwart that, but that causes Elyeth to just lead an all-out attack on the Blue Dragonflight. When we go back to Senegos, they're just withered all over the place. It just
all over him.
All over, like, yes, all over him. I was like, oh shit, Senegos is gonna die because
this. Yeah, I was so sad when we were flying in because I was like, oh my god. They literally went. So this is another. They did it once with the Naga at the beginning, and then they did it again where you're in flight, seeing kind of an airborne view of what's going on below you, and it reminded me of World War Z, with the fast zombies that just like crawl up and over everything. And basically that's what you see them running up the path, and you're kind of like, oh, that's okay. We can go over the mountain, go around, except they're also going over the mountain when you turn the other way.
Falling off the edge and continuing to run. And to me, I was just like, yeah, looks like Warcraft 3. Isometric RTS view, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody did a select all and they're moving across the land. I really dug it. So we go in, we fight the Withered. We eventually kill Elyeth in the process. And thank God, after how much time Blizzard spent making me give a crap about Senegos did not die. Sadly, apparently, killing everyone you love, for the most part, is the theme of Legion, because Runas the Shamed, after having just met him, he succumbs to the lack of energy, and he just becomes a mindless Withered at the end. And it is so sad.
It's really, and again, very well done, but man, Blizzard is not pulling any punches with this expansion. Like, try not to care about anyone, guys, because holy crap.
It's really hard for me not to just jump into talking about Val'sharah right now, but we will have to wait for that. I'm still having issues coping with the events of Val'sharah.
Yeah. But yeah, so he succumbs. They did a fantastic job, not only the voice acting, but just writing him as like, so basically you can complete the quest and then you could just leave the cave and you don't really see it. And that I find is also something they've done a lot of this expansion, is you can complete your quest and keep going, or you can kind of stick around and see, like, they haven't put everything, they don't make you experience a lot of the story and a lot of the lore. They basically say you can continue your journey if you don't care, or stick around. There's a few more conversation options. Sometimes they're voiced, sometimes they're just speech bubbles, but there's a lot more explanation if you kind of just slow down a little. And this is one of those scenes that if you just turned in your quest to him and went back out to the dragons, then you missed his transformation. And it was very well done, very well voiced, very well written, and very sad.
Yeah, it's made me stop after most quests to be like, okay, is there anything else? Like, I've read more quest text this expansion than I have in any other expansion. I've really just taken my time overall. So there's so many nice
I was gonna say that's why it took me so long to hit max level, and I was still max level after 2 days.
Yeah, 2 days is not no. I mean, I know your boyfriend just stayed up for 24 hours straight and hit max level, but not everyone does that, Jocelyn.
I know. I did play for probably 2 16-hour days, though. Which, in Draenor, I think it took me a week and a half to hit max level, and it was a slog, so...
Fair enough.
This I couldn't put Legion down, and it was because of stories like this and NPCs like Runas that did it.
Yeah, I immediately was diving into the 5-mans afterwards because I wanted to find the end of figure out the end of the zone story. And then even in the 5-mans, they have like hidden quests or chests or like the star mobs. So I'm like, yeah, let's kill the extra mobs and go find this thing, guys. And for the most part, except for that one hunter that's always there that's misdirecting to the tank and pulling even though you're not ready, everyone else is on board. Take their time, let the tank pull. Let's go get that chest. Let's go get that extra rare spawn mob. And I really dig it. There's a level of exploration in this that I really like. So
yeah.
Anyways, so after we save the Blue Dragonflight, this kind of ties things up for the Blue Dragonflight for now. They're saved. Senegos's power is restored. He's out of the mana pool. He says he feels better than he has in centuries. So.
Which makes sense. I mean, if you've been essentially having your source of power drained for centuries, somebody gives you access to that power again. Like,
boy,
you're gonna feel better.
To bring up the subject of convenience again, boy, is it convenient that we showed up when we did. It's like apparently this has been going on forever, and it just got to the point where Senegos was about to eat it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so earlier he pointed us in the direction of Prince Farondis and the night elf ghosts of Nar'thalas. So we head over there. We meet Prince Farondis. He is the leader of the Nar'thalas elves. This was the Azuna population of night elves that were involved with the Nightborne. Who became the Nightborne over near the Well of Eternity, who were corrupted by Sargeras, but he was far enough away and his people were far enough away that they were not directly corrupted by Sargeras. So this was the Highborn of Zin Ajari.
Right. And so basically they were like the researchers, I guess, is a really good way to put it. So there were the Highborn that were actually directly involved in pulling magic from and corrupting the Well of Eternity. And then there was this kind of academy, library type area further away and almost like a second capital city of the Night Elves. Yeah, and so that's basically where we are now with Suramar and also with this, what's it called?
Nar'thalas.
Nar'thalas, thank you.
Nar'thalas. Because the Nar'thalas Academy, which is in Azuna, which Farondis and his people were kind of the stewards of, that's where all of the arcane wielding night elves would go to train.
Right.
And so that's where we're going to now. So we meet Prince Farondis. We find out that his people hate him. His people
with a fiery passion.
A fiery passion of 1,000 moons. Because they're night elves.
Yeah. I got it.
Yeah, exactly. See, you get it. So they're all ghosts. They're all dead but not dead. Turns out they were cursed by Queen Azshara. Farondis found out about Queen Azshara's plan to bring the Legion through. So he devised the plan to destroy the Moonwell in Zin Ajari using the Tidestone, so the pillar that we're trying to find. And this would close the portal to Sargeras' realm. But he was betrayed by his own subject, Vandros, who went to Queen Azshara and said, "Yo, dog, Farondis is not in line anymore. You should probably do something about that." So in a staggering display of power, according to things we find out through the course of questing for Farondis and the people of Nar'thalas, Queen Azshara actually just destroyed this Tidestone, just blew it up, and in the process cursed the whole populace of Nar'thalas, robbing them of the ability to die. And that is why they are these roaming spirits, and they are bound to the land of Azuna.
Yeah, which is a really cool way to explain why we haven't heard of them before. Like we haven't seen them anywhere is because, they're stuck there.
Yep.
But man, that was one angry queen to not only go and kill everyone, but then also say, "I'm going to kill you, but now you're stuck here too, and you can't actually do anything because you're ghosts."
Yeah.
So suck it.
And we haven't taken our aside or our bullet point to discuss just Queen Azshara in general. She hasn't really been around lately. So Jocelyn, who is Queen Azshara and why is she so important in Legion?
Well, basically, she was, like I mentioned earlier, she was the queen of the Night Elves. She had all of her Highborn, trying to pull more power from the Well of Eternity. And basically, before she got kind of corrupted, she was so loved by her people that's why we see all of, there's Azshara, the zone in Kalimdor. There is Zinashari. There's Zinashara. There's all these things that are basically named after her, and a lot of these place names actually mean like for the love of Azshara. And she was just so beloved and so powerful that she ruled the Night Elves for, hundreds and thousands of years. So, and for like ever, guys, ever. So, when she became corrupted by Sargeras and then the Well of Eternity exploded, the reason that we haven't seen her is she's not actually dead. But when the Well of Eternity actually exploded, her palace was built around the Well of Eternity, and so she was consumed in the explosion. But she made a deal with Whispers. And so this is the thing, we were never kind of told exactly what, but there were these rumors that she made a deal and that she had actually become, and her highborn had become, the Naga.
Yep.
So we haven't actually seen Queen Azshara since the War of the Ancients, but we get to see her in Legion, which is so super cool. And she's basically been brought back to the forefront by the search for the Pillar of Eternity.
Yeah, it's just awesome. The last time the Naga and her forces were really taking center stage was all the way back in Burning Crusade when we had to deal with Lady Vaj in Serpent Shrine Caverns.
Who was her handmaiden.
Yes, absolutely. So the rumors are, the whispers that she bartered a deal with, because I don't think what we did say was that her palace sunk to the depths of the sea when the well exploded. So she was basically banished to the sea. We know that she made a deal with something, and she became the Empress of the Nazjatar, which are the Naga. So most likely she bartered a deal with the old god N'Zoth.
Which is so cool.
Yeah, so previously...
we haven't actually seen N'Zoth in Warcraft yet.
Yeah, so Azshara is a terrifyingly powerful enemy. She used to be in Sargeras' pocket. She is most likely now in N'Zoth's pocket, and she has always had her own agenda.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's...
and she was ridiculously powerful in her own right.
Yeah, when she was just merely an immortal Night Elf ruler.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that she's back, the fact that we get to see her, she has an in-game model now, like very, very cool. And that's part of what we find out while questing alongside Farondis. So we go with Farondis. He takes us to the Nar'thalas ruins. The Naga are just running wild. So we go on this long campaign to kind of push them away. And then we find... we come into contact with one of Azshara's commanders, Athisa. I don't know. It's made up names.
Your guess is your guess is as good as mine. Like I said, I usually read the first letter and then skim.
Yeah, and this is when we learn why Farondis and his people are cursed. This is also why we learn why Farondis' people kind of hate him, because they blame him for betraying their beloved queen and incurring her wrath.
Well, and even then, I'm not even 100% sure if they understand. They seem to be fairly isolated, and she seemed to just kind of show up and explode them, and then they don't seem to have any kind of understanding of what happened in the wider world afterwards. It's like they don't understand that the Sundering happened. They don't know that she tried to bring the Legion. They don't know that the Well of Eternity is gone. They are basically like stuck in that moment of when she killed them.
Yep.
So they are just blissfully unaware of basically what their prince was standing up to.
Right. And then I'm sure he has tried to explain it, but it doesn't seem like they believe him. So I don't think they've come into contact with Naga, and I don't think they know of the connection to Azshara at that point.
Well, and I'm not even 100% sure that he ever did try to explain it, because he, to me, looks like he's kind of seen the impact of his actions on his people, and he's just been in a deep depression for 10,000 years. He just seems like, maybe I should have just let her go through with it, because it couldn't be worse than damning my people to this unlife.
yeah. But for those of us, like us, the player, we're just like, what's wrong with you people? Azshara's a crazy bitch.
Yes, exactly.
Anyways, it gets better. So during this, we end up outside Nar'thalas Academy, which is this famous, basically wizarding school.
Yep.
# not Hogwarts.
I was gonna say, did you feel like Harry Potter questing through the
I
academy at all?
loved it.
I totally
loved
did.
it so much. We find out Farondis informs us that the broken fragments of the Tidestone are still within Nar'thalas Academy. So we have to go in. We have to the ghosts of the teachers are still teaching and conducting classes as if nothing ever happened. And I love it. I like the flavor of showing up and the instructors just being like, "Where's your robe? Where's your hat?
Yeah.
You don't even have a wand. Come back when you give a damn." It basically is like, so you have to go around, collect all this shit. You have to go take like wand classes. I loved every second of this.
And I've got to say, it took me a really, really long time to do that quest because you spend your entire Warcraft experience being able to just click on something and cast. You don't actually have to aim.
You have to do skill shots.
And that whole quest was about aiming. And I was like, why am I not able to hit this thing? I'm clicked on it. Duh.
You also
Spoiler
get yelled
alert,
at.
thing.
You also get yelled at by the instructor if you do point blank shots. If you walk right up to it and hit the button, she yells at you. I love it. Although you still get credit and she doesn't do anything about it. But
You still get credit?
yeah.
Man, the teacher yelling at me was enough to make me not do it.
Oh, I was still doing it. I liked if you could line up like 4 of those things and the projectile would keep going, so you could hit 4 in one go if you lined it up correctly. Anyway, sorry, I was min-maxing my wand class.
Apparently.
Because I have no
I
soul.
was not doing it right.
Yeah. So this was really fun. There wasn't a whole lot else in here. It was just get to talk to the headmistress so you can get the key to get into the room with the Tidestone fragments. I did really loved the fight with the headmistress, though, because she tried to cast extra homework on me.
Yes.
And it was very nice getting to interrupt that. Wish I could have done that in actual school.
I know. That's one thing that I've noticed about Legion that I think is different, at least from what I remember of my experience. And granted, it's not a full Warcraft experience from vanilla, but I feel like, first of all, the spells that the NPCs are casting that you have to go through, whether you're questing or the rares or whatever, there's so much flavor in those spells. And I mean, I feel like before it was like fireball or like explosion, but like you say, they're casting these spells that have so much flavor, you don't even really know what's going to happen. And you're just like, I should not know that's probably, I should interrupt that. I don't want to get hit with that.
I let one go through every time just because I was like, well, what does this do? It's like, ooh, that's not good.
Yeah.
There's that's also the other thing I noticed is like the skill level seems a little amped up. It's like our action bars got cleaned up. We have significantly less to do, but our like the standard mob we go up against, there's actually stuff you want to interrupt. So I dig that quite a bit with Legion.
Basically, it's almost like because my biggest thing with previous Warcraft and the reason I didn't raid for so long is I felt like I wasn't taught how to by just leveling up, which I think you should be. And I feel like they fixed that in Legion because the mobs that you're going up against, whether they're quest bosses or whether they are rares in the world, have things that you have to move out of. Have things that you have to actually interrupt,
and that existed in the previous expansions too. I feel like Pandaria and onward is when I noticed this stuff, but there was not to this extent. There wasn't this much of it, and there definitely wasn't like generic mob number 23 with a cast bar that you could interrupt.
Yes, yeah.
So I've been digging it a lot. So anyway, so we finished that. We collected the shattered fragments of the Tidestone. And the second we finish it, Athesa shows up and captures us.
Right.
Yep. And then Farondis saves us, and we get to play as Farondis for a little while. And I don't know why I don't have his Meteor Kill Everything spell on any of my heroes, but I want it.
Right?
Yeah. That was.
He is just suddenly a badass.
Yeah. Also, Jocelyn, I'm mad. There should have been an achievement for this, but did you do this? As you're questing with Farondis, did you notice that he never steps on water? He always blinks across water, and I made sure to do the same while playing as him, and I feel like there should have been an achievement for that.
Huh, I never noticed that.
Yeah, because when you first leave his little area, there's like a little puddle, and he's like, there's flooding. I should get the servants on this, and he blinks past it. And every time past that, anytime you come up to water, he blinks past the water. Huh. He like never steps on it. I thought
doesn't want to get his feet wet.
I really liked that.
That's
like
adorably princey.
This prince idiosyncrasy of his. Like, I just can't. I can't stand getting my feet wet. Can't stand.
Yeah, I wish you could there was like a extra action button that popped up that said like take off your cloak and lay it on the puddle or something.
Fantastic. Well, then you just have a soggy cloak, but. Anyways,
But your prince wouldn't have wet feet.
I liked that. And this is when we get to confront Queen Azshara. She shows up as a crazy Naga witch silhouette. I have a feeling they just don't know what they want her to look like yet.
Well, I have a feeling that she's very much like, she's so powerful that she's very much like the dragons, that she can take many different forms. Because even though, for instance, Chromie, we see her as a little gnome most of the time, but really that's just her preferred appearance. She could look like anything she wanted to. So I feel like Azshara is now at that point where she can look or be like anyone. So I think, you're right. They're trying to decide, like, okay, do we want her to take her night elf form? Do we want her to be a Naga? Like, she can be anything. What is her true form going to be? So I think there's a lot of still playing around with her and her character.
I think her Naga form is her true form now, as a result of most likely N'Zoth. Hashtag most likely N'Zoth. I will stop that, I promise. No, we're not sure. We're not 100% sure. But again, I have a feeling she will be a boss later on in this expansion, and I'm sure they just haven't decided what her model's going to look like yet. So that's probably why I think we see just a generic Naga silhouette, and then she takes her elven form.
I think it would be really, really cool if she was a boss and we had to fight her and she looked like a whole bunch of different things. Like if she started in like her night elf form and then, became some sort of like fell corrupted night elf and then became her Naga, like her final phase was like her big Naga form. That would be so cool.
That'd be pretty sweet. That's how I thought the Deathwing fight was going to go. I thought we were going to fight him in his human form at some point. But nope, you just fight just big Deathwing. Old Deathwing. I do really like that fight on his back, by the way, but it was sweet.
I hate that as a solo player. That sucked.
Well, yeah, but I hate that the game doesn't work in ways that it wasn't designed to. It's basically what you just said, Jocelyn.
I know.
But this whole thing was sweet. He mouths off to Queen Azshara. He throws a bunch of fireballs at her. They do nothing. But she just kind of laughs it off and leaves with the Tidestone, which is bad. But so he saves us, and then we go to confront Athissa one last time, try to catch up with her and get the Tidestone back. We get to kill her, but sadly I don't know what the guy's name. I just call him her masculine counterpart. Makes off with the Tidestone.
He was Warlord somebody.
Yeah, and we have to follow him into the instance at the end of Azuna, the Eye of Azshara, which we'll talk about in a second, but not before. We mentioned that Farondis' people finally realized that he's an awesome leader after witnessing everything that went down with Athissa and finding out that there are these hands of Queen Azshara, and they're just trying to screw everyone over in horrible ways.
Well, just finding out that the Naga are a thing.
Yeah.
Because they were completely unaware before now of things that had happened outside of their little bubble. So I think that it was a really interesting story arc. Yeah, absolutely. I really dug it. And the 5-man was sweet. This is the first 5-man I did. I ran it with you. You had already run it once, so I had this the first time in my life where you were explaining things, mechanics of Warcraft to me. How weird is that? It was super weird, but I loved it because I was tanking, and you're like, "Oh, this dude throws a spear. Just don't move that guy." And I moved that guy. Yeah. Because I'm dumb, but we figured it out and it was fine. But I really liked this. I've loved every dungeon I have done so far in Legion, and Eye of Azshara is no exception. I really had a good time with it. Yeah, even the dungeon that I wasn't really excited for, which was because I still haven't completed questing in the zone, and a lot of people say it's their favorite zone, so I think I maybe just haven't given it enough time. I haven't progressed far enough in the story, but the High Mountain dungeon is the one that I was least looking forward to, and it's actually probably my favorite. Frickin' sweet. I just did it this morning for the first time. It has so many cool flavor pieces. Yeah. And yeah, so we'll talk about it more when we do High Mountain, but water slide. Yeah. Water barrels, slide. Dude. Barrels. I'm a freaking hobbit. Water slides, barrels. And not in a oh my god, this movie sucks kind of way. So Eye of Azshara was sweet. We have to fight Azshara's Wrath, which is this massive arcane horror that his witches were creating using the Tidestone. I love the flavor of it being kind of half-baked, so when you click on it, more than 75% of its health is missing, and it still has an obscene amount of health. It was, I think, I can't remember, 54 million, I think, the first time I clicked on it. It was this just beastly thing with so much health. And then it's like, like you said, the health bar is at 20%. And you're just like, oh, man, I'm glad we got here when we did.
Yeah. And again, I haven't spoiled like the releases of Legion for myself, so I don't know if we're getting a raid at some point that focuses around Azshara, but I could see this thing coming back at full strength and being a full-blown raid boss, and Azshara being the final boss. I hope we get more of this.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. I've been trying to avoid spoilers, although I feel like now I've pretty much done everything there is to do, and I think I can go look at 7.1 content now from Gamescom, but the only thing that I know is I believe on the 20th we're getting the first raid opening, which I actually got a quest to go into, and so I know what that raid is. But outside of that, I'm not sure. Cool. I know that there's going to be one because they're marked on your map, so I know that there's going to be one in Suramar, but...
That makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah.
I haven't done a whole lot of Suramar, but I did just the very beginning, and oh my god, the little in-game cinematic at the beginning of Suramar, it just... Jocelyn, I just want to go re-roll Alliance and go back to my home as a night elf and never come back because the night elf pride is swelling up inside me.
Yep. I'm not even Alliance or a night elf, and I still got a little bit gooey.
Oh, dirty.
No.
Sorry, I can't. You do this to me all the time on Angry Chicken. All right.
No, that's true.
All right.
It's about time.
People losing their mind over made my pants move a little from the last episode of Angry Chicken. I'm just like, really, guy? Like, how many sex jokes has Jocelyn just like giggled at loudly and like I can't have one, really? Come on. Anyways.
Well, it's because I don't usually say them out loud. I think that's the difference.
Oh, you just kind of giggle and move on.
I just giggle and everyone knows.
Everyone, including Dills and I, who come to a complete stop and go, really, Jocelyn? Anyways. So I wanted to take a break at the end because we covered the main arc, the main lore, and I think this is something we'll do for the rest of them and talk about the side stuff that we liked because there was a lot of side stuff. I don't think we necessarily need to talk about all of it. But I would like to lead with Daglop the Imp. I loved this side quest where we get to become an imp's minion.
And he just keeps calling you minion, which like... Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm here, minion.
I've always had a warlock alt. It's never been max level, but it's always like the last thing I go and do at the end of an expansion. I go and tinker around on my warlock. And I love the whole thing. It's just like, here, sign this contract in blood. you can read the contract and it's absurd.
I was going to say, how far did you actually go? Because you can click about 6 times into this
I read the
ridiculous
whole thing.
Demon okay.
I read the whole damn thing on my paladin. On my death knight, I was just like, yeah, whatever. I'm surprised I have blood left. But
because you can actually click through and read about 6 pages of this contract before it just says the text gets so small and scribbled that you don't really know what it says.
yeah. I love that you get a toy later so you can pull back out the contract and relive your glory days with Daglop.
Yep.
It was like the most non-essential quest in this whole zone, but I loved it. I also really liked the side quest with the Night Elf Kirin Tor brother and sister, the Starlance siblings. The whole side quest to go and find their parents.
Yeah, that was a really, really, really cool quest. And at first I didn't realize who you were talking about when I was like looking at the stuff you liked, and I was like, wait, who was that? But yeah, now I remember, looking for their parents in the ruins, and you got to confront the Naga, you got to see their really, really funny and kind of right on the mark brother and sister banter. Like, I mean, they're throwing fireballs at each other at one point.
No, just the sister. Just the sister. And then you find out that just the wife does it to the husband later on. Just like, they tell these very over-exaggerated stories like, and then she was like, boom, and she actually fires a fireball at her brother and he falls over. And I loved every second of it. It was one of the few things in this entire expansion that wasn't voice acted, and I wish it was. But I don't know. I thought it was really heartfelt, and I thought it was a really clever way to build on top of what was already happening here. It's like, what is some of the ancillary fallout of finding out that there's this entire Night Elf civilization that is still alive, that we thought was dead. Well, they're still partially alive in the fact that they're ghosts.
They're
and
around,
it's like, well, there's Night Elves that are part of the Kirin Tor that were, mages and they just thought their whole civilization was dead and that they're the last of their kind, and then they find out that this civilization is still there. It makes sense that, of course, there's a couple members of the Kirin Tor that are like, shit, I'd really like to go see if my family's still alive.
Or at least, still around.
Yeah, I guess just alive in quotes.
Which I've got to say, that is one part of this zone that I'm kind of glad that we didn't do. I'm glad that there, at least so far, has been no way to lift the curse. Because, again, I'm really attached to a lot of these people, and lifting the curse would essentially, like, it would be killing them, but it would also be releasing them to whatever the afterlife is for Night Elves.
This is feeling very, like, a very different spin on the ghosts in Lord of the Rings. Like, I think they're going to play a big part in our fight against Legion. I think once we are hopefully successful, question marks, that they will be relieved, and that's when we'll release the curse, and they will, it'll tidy it up. I mean, that's what I feel like where we're going with the ghosts of this particular Night Elf group. But man, overall, by the way, the whole zone was the same for Horde and Alliance.
Yes.
There was one tiny difference that I was aware of, which was the Mr. Shackle side quest, where we find out about a Forsaken ship that ran aground, and the soldiers are not doing well. The Horde go and save the soldiers. The Alliance just go and kill the soldiers and put them out of their quote-unquote misery. And whether you play Horde or Alliance, at the end you do find a ship log on this ship, which is one of the flagships from Sylvanas' fleet, and it gives hints as to what Sylvanas' plan is to basically enslave the Valkyra, but it doesn't say that. It's illegible in parts. So if you did Azuna before Stormheim, it's kind of this cool hint. Otherwise, if you did it first, you're just like, all right, well, I already knew what she was doing.
Yeah, and I did Azuna first and then went to Stormheim afterwards. So I feel like it was a cool breadcrumb for me.
Yeah, me too. Me as well. And if you're Horde, you go and you turn it in, and they're like, oh, thank God you kept this out of Alliance hands. Come to find out if you're Alliance, you get it too. And they're like, yeah, sweet, we stole some info. But so overall, I really love the zone. I even like the pit fighter stuff, which usually I hate. But
so okay, what was the pit fighter? Because I don't remember it.
I don't remember
Azuna
the lore.
Was the first zone I did. Like, I was way tired when I did it. So
this wasn't the thing I really dug deep into, because I knew we were probably going to spend a lot of time talking about Azshara's lore and the Nightborne lore. So I don't know why the hell there is a bunch of pit fighters in this random section of Azuna, but I loved the living crap out of the quests. That whole area. I
feel like I must have just missed this section because I don't remember.
You can skip it entirely.
Oh, okay.
It's 100% a side thing, but you go and join these like pit fighters that are being a bunch of different races that are being forced to fight by these sea giants. And you find out there's a slave ring going on.
I did do that because that led into the Mr. Shackles area.
Yeah, it's tied in with the Naga. The Naga are starting to enslave some of the locals because that's what they do. Because if you remember slave pens in Burning Crusade, they just, we need slaves. So you arm the slaves after stealing a bunch of weapons from the pit fighters. And that's how you find Mr. Shackle, and that's how you go on that little side quest. Because you save Mr. Shackle and his group of salvagers, 100% ethical salvage.
Yeah. Not pirates at all.
No, not pirates in any way, shape, or form. They didn't give a crap about the Forsaken. They just wanted us to go loot the ship.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it overall. I liked the muted color palette. We don't get muted color palettes very often in World of Warcraft. It's usually very bright in one way or another. And I like that Azuna had a much more kind of muted and realistic tone to its vegetation and whatnot.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that as well because I feel like it could have been very blue and purple and bright and highborny. And I feel like it wasn't because they're dead and cursed. But it wasn't all the way to the point where I'm thinking of Auchendoon in...
it's not. It hasn't gone that far, but it's because of the fact that the...
They could have gone white and gray, and they didn't. It's somewhere in between.
Yeah, since the ley lines are being sapped, it makes sense that it's like everything's still alive, but not as vibrant as it could or should be. And it also really helps set Azuna apart from Val'Sharah.
Yes.
Because when I first got to Azuna, I'm like, it's a little understated. I kind of like it. Like when I got to... I'm trying to think. Borean Tundra was really nice and neutral as well. It's my least favorite zone in all of Lich King, but I did like how how kind of, again, neutral and subdued and the color palette was, because it comes across so rarely in Warcraft. They usually go very, very heavy-handed with their palettes, which I think is cool. I love when you move from one zone to another and the whole palette just shifts.
Yes, yeah.
I've always really liked that about WoW. But after having done both Azuna and Val'sharite, I thought it was a really smart artistic decision. So anyway,
I agree.
There's my art nerd. Got that out of the way. Any closing thoughts on Azuna, Jocelyn?
Like I mentioned, I think off the top, it's one of my favorite zones, probably my favorite zone to quest through. It's small, so it's really compact and easy to quest through, and I felt like it had the most kind of main story, or easiest to follow main storyline. Like last week we talked about Stormheim, and I feel High Mountain has a lot of the same problems. Is it kind of pulls you in a bunch of different directions. You're still basically moving the same way, but it's really hard to tell what's main story and what's not. And this zone felt very much like, even when we did the Mr. Shackle stuff, I didn't even really feel like that was a side quest, you know? Like I still felt like I was progressing and moving through the zone in the same direction. I never felt like I was, you know, bouncing around. So I think Azuna, from a leveling questing standpoint, as well as all the stuff that we talked about, obviously the lore nerd in me, I love War of the Ancients, so that was all really, really cool. But just from a straight up mechanics of questing, I think the story was easiest to follow in this zone, and it was an interesting story, so I don't mind doing it over and over and over. Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed the zone. This was the perfect place for me to start after my extreme burnout in Draenor. This was just the kindling that would go on to be the blazing flame of passion reignited for World of Warcraft for me. So
yeah,
I really like Azuna, and probably going to be my first place I go back to when I start my world quests, or whatever they're called.
Yeah, they're world quests.
Yeah, again, I haven't read up on anything I'm not currently doing, and since I'm kind of back leveling again, even though I hit 110 on my paladin, I haven't gotten to that point yet. So anyways, that's going to do it for this particular episode. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We're rocketing up the iTunes charts right now, more so than we ever have with the Embrace the Spoilers feed. So thank you all very much. And if you like the show, drop us a 5-star review. We've gotten a few. Not a ton. Thank you to Gamer, spelt all leak-like. Thank you to the Programmer. Thank you to Reno Fox. And thank you to D. Hess for all of the 5-star reviews. My favorite thing is we got a really mean, low-effort 1-star review right before we started rocketing up the charts. So suck it, that person. So anyways, Jocelyn, when you're not spoiling Legion, where can folks find you?
You can find pretty much everything I do at amove.tv. You can also follow me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at JocePlays. That's JOCE Plays.
Sweet. You can find me on Twitter at Garrett Art. And you can find this and all of the other podcasts I do, some of which are also with Jocelyn, over at amove.tv as well. So go check that out. Thank you for listening. And how did we say we were going to sign off? We actually need to make up a sign off for this.
Oh. Did we decide on For Azeroth?
I think it's For Azeroth. So until next time, For Azeroth.
I was like, are we supposed to say it together? Damn it.
Yeah, we should probably say it together. No, seriously, I don't care if this is the outro. Let's try it. And until next time, For Azeroth.
That's really hard to do on Skype.
It is. I think that's where the photo or the video comes in handy, because you can see me do this. For Azeroth. But actually, we nailed it. Let's play that back. For Azeroth. Yeah, we killed it. Nice.
I can't hear it, so.
I know you can't, because Skype, but cool. Well,
Draven in the chat room saying, for the Legion.
No. No, that's what. For Satan.
We should tell everyone who's in the chat room, don't go anywhere, or well, I guess you can go somewhere, but only for like 2 hours and then come back, because we're running dungeons. And
yeah, we're gonna run the Eye of Azshara today. It actually ties in perfectly with this podcast. We should tell Kristen that we would prefer doing the High Mountain 5-man next week, so we can once again tie in with our spoilers.
I have to get through that zone, man.
What is going on here? There's a new Hearthstone bundle coming called the Welcome Bundle. For $5, you get 10 classic Hearthstone packs and 1 guaranteed random class legendary from the classic set. I hope I can get one as a
class
not new
legendary.
player.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a good deal. I hope
the classic class legendaries were pretty solid.
Yeah.
With the exception, like obviously there's a couple of exceptions, but that's what Jiraxxus, King Crush, Tyrion.
Yep. What was the Edwin Van Cleef?
Right, Van Cleef.
Druid was it was Cenarius.
Cenarius.
And
Antonidas.
And Prophet Velen.
Mm-hmm.
So
what was Shaman? Oh, Alakir.
Alakir. So I think King Crush and Prophet Velen probably the two least exciting ones there.
Yeah. Oh, and Grom. Thank you.
Oh, and Grom, which is phenomenal. Grom's phenomenal. Edwin's phenomenal. Tyrion is arguably the best fucking card in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, most of the things
good.
there.
That's a really good deal.
Yeah.
And you open King Crush and cry.
I'm excited to talk about this tomorrow. Well, sweet. Everyone, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in a little bit for a 5-man with me, you, Jocelyn, Dills, Kyle, and Kristen. So excited to tank.
Get my artifact.
I'm loving my Death Knight. Absolutely loving it.
That's good. I started as Arcane. It was like a 2-hour slog trying to do that quest. It was ridiculous.
That sounds awful.
It was buggy. It was stupid hard. I asked in guild chat because I was like, I know I'm newish to mage, but I leveled up as Frost. Like, this shouldn't be so terrible. I just thought that the Arcane kind of playstyle sounded really cool. And they were just like, no, it's basically tuned to be impossible. I was like, what? Well, it's like a known bug that you basically can't finish the Arcane questline as an Arcane mage. You have to switch to like fire. So anyways, I got my Arcane after forever. Got my Arcane artifact, but I need to push through and level to 102 because I'm now doing my leveling is fire with not an artifact weapon, just with the staff you can buy in the class hall. What? And so I have to get to 102 so I can actually unlock my fire weapon. Then I'll have a flaming sword, which will be so cool.
Then I'll have a flaming sword.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, chat room, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you in a bit.